Hey everybody, welcome to a video showing you a little bit of a how-to on installing a motherboard. This is a mini ITX motherboard. Well, the first thing we need to do is take these little brass standoffs and put them into the holes in which the motherboard is going to sit on top of. So just basically just putting these in and tighten them down nice and snug. You want to do a little bit more than just a finger tightening. You want to get them pretty snug in there. We'll be screwing screws into this. It's going to hold the motherboard into the chassis. So make sure that they're nice and level all the way threaded down to the case as well. So this mini ITX board is only going to take 4, depending upon the type of motherboard you're installing. I mean, if you have a regular ATX size, it could take 6 or 8. Anything, they even make bigger motherboards than that, so it could take even more screws. Just make sure that all the screw holes you have on the motherboard are lined up and supported. Putting in our last one here in the back. It's a little bit tricky. Working inside of these types of cases can be a little bit tight. So you may need an angled screwdriver or something to kind of get around the corners. So we have our 4 brass standoffs put into the case. We're going to go ahead and put in the rear I/O panel. You want to make sure you put it the correct direction for your motherboard you're putting in. It just snaps into place. So go ahead and line up the sides of it. Go ahead and just press in. I usually start with the top. Press the top in. You'll hear it kind of snap into place. And then just push against and make sure all of the sides are pressed in fully. If not, then your motherboard won't sit correctly on top of those brass standoffs. You can see right here, all the silver kind of lips are protruding past the back of the case, so we can see that it's correctly installed. Now that we have our I/O panel in, the next step is to go ahead and put your motherboard into the case itself, making sure that we line up all of the correct connectors on the back of the I/O panel. Now this has a pretty dense piece of foam on top of the I/O panel in the back. What that means is we'll have to kind of push against the motherboard as we're installing it to make sure that the screw holes line up for the standoffs. So we have 4 screws that we're putting into this. Now as we put these screws in, you can see that I'm pulling it towards the I/O panel to make sure that it lines up. Now we're going to put these 4 screws in. I wouldn't tighten them down extremely tight. You actually want a little bit of play in them. The reason being is we'll need to push against the opposite side over here to make sure that we get this into place as well. Our next one we're going to do is just right here in the bottom corner. This is a really tight fit, especially on this particular case. We have a power plug that's in the way. Now the majority of these power plugs can be moved or pushed out, or might have some screws in it that's kind of holding it into place, which is what this one has. So what we're going to go ahead and do is actually just pop the 2 screws out on the back here that hold this power plug into this portion of the case itself. Now you may not have this issue if you have a rear-mounted PSU or something of that nature, where this one runs a power cord all the way from front to back, gets in the way a little bit. So we're just going to take the screws out and pull it forward, and that'll allow us to put our screw in the back corner here. Like I was saying, you want to make sure you put them in there. I wouldn't tighten them down just yet. Give them a little bit of time to, or a little bit lax so you can press around the rest of the motherboard a little bit. Now you want to make sure that you put that power cord back in place. But we'll do that after we tighten all 4 of them down nice and snug once all 4 of them are in. Go ahead and start the back screw. See that I'm pushing against the board and the I/O panel. Make sure that brass screw lines up. And just one last screw here in the front. Now depending upon your tools, I would suggest a short screwdriver. Makes this job a lot easier. Or maybe even a angled screwdriver if you have one of those. It looks like for this particular portion of the case, I'm going to have to go ahead and break that out. So my angled screwdriver here. It's a ratcheting one so you can get your fingers in a little bit closer to where you want it to be. So now that I have all 4 in, what I can do is go ahead and start to snug these down. Make sure they're nice and tight. Now we're not looking for excessive force, we're just looking for snug so the board won't move around at all when we're plugging our connectors in. Last one here in the back. Now if you want to see the connection of all of the points onto this motherboard, I'll throw that down in the description. If you have any questions about this installation, go ahead and throw them down in the comments. I'll be more than happy to try to answer any of those. As always, I appreciate you watching the videos. You want to see the rest of the build? It'll be down in the description.